let's dive right into this absolutely monumental May 2026 UAP disclosure. For decades, the whole topic of unidentified flying objects has been completely clouded by speculation, a ton of stigma, and let's face it, endless pop culture mythology. But recently, a massive shift happened. The US government literally opened the vault. Today, we're focusing strictly on the newly declassified official data. Our goal here is simple but profound. We are going to cut through that everyday noise and find the undeniable signal. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this release, just look at this number, 162. That is the number of newly declassified files released in a single day under the Pentagon's per-use executive program. We're talking 120 PDFs, 28 videos, and 14 images covering over 400 separate incidents. And this isn't just recent stuff either. These records span 79 years of military, intelligence, and diplomatic history. So here is the game plan for our explainer today. We'll start with the 2026 PERSU disclosure itself, then look at solving the solvable cases, dive into the most compelling unresolved mysteries, map out some truly wild global anomalies, and finish up with the government's new quest for transparency. All right, part one, the 2026 PERSU disclosure, and its 79 years of records. Let's look at the incredible interagency effort that actually brought all this to light. This traces a massive historical arc. It goes all the way back to the legendary 1947 Roswell memo and brings us right up to today's unprecedented transparency. Now, for some context, historically, a lot of the noise in UFO reporting was actually just highly classified US tech. Declassified documents show that tests of the U-2 and A-12 Oxcart spy planes out in places like Area 51, those were actually responsible for more than half of the UFO reports from the 1950s and 60s. But the timeline keeps going. It leads to the 2024 AARO report and culminates in this 2026 release where 7 different federal agencies, including the FBI, NASA, and the Pentagon, finally pooled their data to give us the raw facts. Moving to part 2, solving the solvable cases. Because honestly, to find the true mysteries, we have to be rigorous about identifying what we actually can explain. Notice how the government completely dropped the highly stigmatized term UFO and shifted to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's not just corporate rebranding, it sets a strict scientific baseline. It means pilots can finally report sightings without fear of ridicule. And crucially, that word anomalous, it broadens the scope to include things moving in the ocean and in space, what they call trans-medium travel, not just things flying in the air. And this really illustrates the noise. The 2024 ARO report confirms that, the vast majority of cases have totally prosaic explanations. Between May 2023 and June 2024, they fully resolved 118 cases, with another 174 queued up for closure. An overwhelming 70% of these, just balloons. 16% were unmanned aerial systems, basically drones. The rest were just birds, normal aircraft, and, increasingly, satellites. In fact, ARO noted that a whole lot of flashing light reports correlate perfectly with Starlink satellite launches. This rigorous filtering is absolutely crucial. By clearing out the weather balloons and commercial drones, we can isolate the truly unexplainable data. We also have to ground our understanding in hard data, like where these objects operate. DoD analytics show that reported UAP altitudes actually peak right around 20,000 feet, which makes total sense, right? That aligns perfectly with heavy commercial air traffic. That is where our pilots are, so naturally, that is where the most sensors and human eyes are looking. On to part 3, the most compelling unresolved cases. Having filtered out all that noise, we finally arrive at the signal, the highly documented cases that officially remain a total mystery. This brings us to the core question. What happens when advanced sensors and multiple trained professional observers encounter something that seems impossible? Out of over 400 incidents in the Pentagon's release, many are explicitly marked unresolved. And we aren't talking about blurry photos taken by a lone hiker. We're talking about multi-sensor encounters by military and law enforcement. Which brings us to the 2023 Western U.S. event. The crucial point here is the immense level of corroboration. That's why the Pentagon calls it the most compelling case in the entire disclosure. Over 2 consecutive days in September 2023, multiple teams of federal law enforcement officers were operating from entirely separate locations. And from those independent vantage points, they all reported the exact same anomalous activity in the sky. The sequence of what they saw is exactly why investigators couldn't just attribute this to a conventional source. The officers watched a massive orange mother orb materialize. Then, this large orb sequentially launched smaller red orbs in organized sets of 2 to 4. Because these smaller orbs consistently followed the larger one in a very deliberate sequence, AARO couldn't brush this off as a drone swarm or some weird atmospheric reflection. It's officially documented, and to this day, it remains completely unexplained.
Part 4. Global and atmospheric anomalies. Because these phenomena aren't just limited to the American West. This is a massive global tracking effort looking at worldwide encounters and, frankly, impossible physics.
Just think about the physics for a second. A 2023 Central Command infrared video captured an object off the coast of Greece executing a precise 90-degree turn at 80 miles per hour. An instantaneous 90-degree turn at that speed generates G-forces that would utterly destroy any known aircraft airframe, and it absolutely couldn't be survived by a human pilot. Yet this continuous, nearly 3-minute video shows the object doing it multiple times, all while being tracked on advanced military sensors. The geographic span of these files is just staggering, stretching from high-altitude commercial airspace all the way to the surface of the moon. We've got a declassified 1994 State Department cable where a commercial pilot encountered an object at 41,000 feet over Tajikistan. We have a 9-second infrared video from the Indo-Pacific Command showing an object near Japan shaped exactly like a football, an oblate spheroid with 0 wings or control surfaces, making its flight aerodynamically impossible. And maybe most incredibly, NASA released archival photos from the 1972 Apollo 17 mission showing 3 lights in a precise triangular formation above the lunar surface. The Pentagon currently assesses that one is a, quote, possible physical object. Just let that sink in.
Finally, Part 5, the quest for transparency. So how is the government actually addressing this lack of actionable data moving forward?
Well, they are deploying purpose-built systems like the GR-Emlyn sensor network. Developed with the Georgia Tech Research Institute, GR-Emlyn integrates 2D and 3D search radars, long-range infrared, and radio frequency monitors into one massive network stack. The military is actively moving away from just relying on anecdotal pilot stories. Instead, they are establishing 90-day pattern-of-life collections at national security sites using these incredibly advanced tools to formally track the phenomena. The official stance is now rooted in unprecedented transparency. On May 8, 2026, the Pentagon stated that the public should be able to make up their own minds. These 162 files are available instantly online, no security clearance required. They've removed the stigma and handed the raw data directly to the scientific community and to us. Now, it's really important to note, the Department of Defense explicitly states they have discovered no evidence of extraterrestrial beings or breakthrough adversarial technologies, but they openly admit that hundreds of these cases completely defy current explanation. So as you process everything in this explainer, I want you to ask yourself, as the noise clears, what kind of signal is waiting to be found next? The US government is committed to releasing new tranches of these files every few weeks. We finally have a baseline. We know what to filter out, and we have the actual undeniable anomalies laid bare. Whatever the ultimate truth behind these phenomena is, for the very first time in history, we're looking at the exact same data as the Pentagon. So what do you think is hiding in the files they haven't released yet?